Your move, your move.
So starting off with today's deck profile, we have triple Exosister Martha. Now Martha, I think, is obviously a 3-of. It's the best Exosister card that exists at the moment. If you don't know what Martha does, I'm going to quickly explain both of its once per turn effects. You can reveal it in your hand, it will special summon itself, and it will special summon Exosister Elise directly from the deck, which is really nice because that is 2 monsters, giving you immediate access to an Xyz. And the second effect is a effect that all of the main deck Exosister monsters share, except Martha's is a bit more powerful. If a card is moved from either graveyard by your opponent, you can use that card as a 1 material Xyz summon. However, Martha's effect also includes that if you move cards out of either graveyard. So Martha's effect is slightly better than the rest of the Exosisters. Along with its first effect, I think that this is a mandatory 3-of, and really the whole deck works through Exosister Martha. For another Exosister, we have triple of the Exosister Elise. Now, triple Elise, because essentially what it does is it special summons itself if you control another Exosister monster, and I believe that effect doesn't activate, so it just sort of summons itself, which is really nice. And also, since Martha is going to be special summoning Elise out of the deck, you're going to need multiple copies of Elise, and I think playing 3 is the safest bet. For the other Exosisters, we have 2 Exosister Stella. I used to play this card a lot at 3. I've gone over my ratios, and I think that 2 is now preferred because, yes, you want to open Exosisters, but you don't want to be opening multiple of the same name because that is just not good. You need multiple names because you're going to want to be making 2 rank 4 Exosister monsters turn 1 to make your Magnifica, and I think Stellar at 2 is just a bit less cloggy in my opinion, and it has a good effect. It's not, you know, the best effect, but what it does is during the main phase you can special summon an Exosister monster from your hand, so it's alright. Obviously they all share the effect that if your opponent moves a card out of either graveyard, the Xyz summon, but just for the first effect I think it's a good 2-of. For a 1-of, we have 1 Exosister Sophia. I used to play this at 2, and to be honest, I've been testing it at 1, and I prefer it much at 1. It's really annoying when you open this card. It's also annoying when you open double of this card. If you don't know, its effect is if you control another Exosister monster apart from itself, you draw a card. It's really good, but if you've Pot of Prosperity this turn, obviously it conflicts with Sophia, and you can't use its effect. And to round it off, we have the 1 Exosister Irene. Shout out to Konami for finally giving it a rarity bump. I know the others have rarity bumps as well. I just haven't had time to pick it up yet. But Irene is the worst one. And she's the worst one, but you play her because of the Exosister Vadis trap, which is going to special summon 2 Exosisters from your deck whose name are mentioned on each other's card text, and for that you're going to be summoning your 1 Sophia and your 1 Irene, and that is why you need to play the Irene. Essentially, its effect isn't great, doesn't really come up, but if you can place an Exosister card from your hand to the bottom of the deck and draw 1 card, so if you open multiple names of an Exosister card, you can always put 1 back and get a fresh card. So its effect can come up sometimes, but it's mostly just in here for the name. Moving on to the spells, we of course have triple of Exosister packs. It's a rota, it's a quick play rota, only during the main phase, which is kind of annoying. I hate when they make quick play spells and then restrict it to the main phase, but it is a quick play, so if they anti-spell you in the main phase for whatever reason, you can chain it. It has niche applications since it's quick play, but since it is locked during the main phase, it is a bit restrictive. However, it searches for any Exosister card, not just monsters. Then it can also be a E-Telly, which is great if you need to get bodies on the field, because if you are going to be summoning an Exosister monster, if the corresponding name of that monster is on your field or the graveyard, you can just summon it instead. So I think this is the only card in the entire archetype that actually checks things in the graveyard, hence why we can play D-Shifter in the side. But apart from that, Exosister packs is just a great rota. Moving on to the traps, we have double Exosister Returnia and double Exosister Vadis. Now, I'm not sure how I feel on the 2-and-2 ratio. For now, the ratio's been going fine. I was considering dropping 1 Vadis because I think Returnia is the better of the 2 traps, but having 2 Vadis as well is very useful in the grind game. So what Returnia and Vadis do, Returnia is if all you control are Exosister monsters, it's basically a banish. And then if you Xe summon that turn, you get an additional non-targeting banish or an Xe summon during your turn. And Vadis is going to basically be special summoning 2 Exosister monsters from your deck. And you're always going to be chaining Vadis if you're going to die that turn. Obviously, you need to get bodies on the field. Or if your opponent's moving something out of the graveyard, you chain Vadis, you summon both your Exosisters, your opponent moves a card because that would be on chain, and then both your Exosisters would be on the field to see a card move, and they would both immediately Xe summon. And your Xyz Exosister monsters get their effects the turn they're summoned, so you'd have 2 effects right there to interrupt your opponent. So that is why Vadis is so good, but I don't know if it's good to be playing 2, because you never really want to open Vadis, because you're always going to be searching one of the traps with your Exosister monsters. So I don't know if 2 and 2 is the way, but for now I'm playing 2. I'll continue testing the deck and we'll be updating you. For the Spirit Package, I see people playing 1 or 2 of this. I play 3. Why? This card is a 1-card full combo, and whenever I see 1-card full combo, I want to maximize on it. Yes, it is very susceptible to Imperm and Ash. You got to be very careful of that. I tend to use this as a last ditch. If I don't have any other plays, I will use this. If I open this in Martha, I will always go Martha first, because if this gets hit by Imperm and Ash, your turn ends. Whereas if Martha gets hit by Ash, or if any of your Exosister stuff is disrupted, you'll still have usually your normal summon and you can still do the full combo. So Triple Aratama, the only annoying thing about him, obviously apart from being very susceptible, is that he is dark. He's the only dark monster in the entire deck. Everything else is light. So you just got to be very careful of that, especially that we're playing a specific trap which checks for our attributes. To round off the Spirit Package, obviously with Aratama, we're going to be searching Sakitama. I play 3 because opening this card, hard opening this card is perfectly fine. In fact, sometimes you kind of need the extra body, because let's say if they Ash your Martha and you haven't got any other plays, you can still normal summon Martha, reveal Sakitama, normal summon it, and immediately Xyz. And the beautiful thing about the spirits is that they normal summon themselves, so the Martha restriction of that you can only special summon Exosister monsters the turn you activate this effect before and after doesn't apply, because the spirits are going to be normal summoning themselves as level 4 bodies. So that is really nice. And the main combo is you're going to Aratama, search Sakitama, Sakitama summon itself, then you're going to make an Exosister Xyz, search Martha, Martha summon itself and Elise, and there you go, you got full combo, and you're going to get a trap search, and you're going to end with Magnifica, which is the main win condition of the deck, I like to feel. For the hand traps, we have Triple Ash Blossom, just very generic, and still very good into rogue matchups, hence why I'm playing it. Triple DD Crow. Now, why do I like Crow instead of the Shifter? Because Crow can act as a starter. What I mean, if they Ash your Martha, you can normal summon Martha, DD Crow them, and then that will trigger your Exosister Martha to actually summon. As I was saying, you can discard Crow and you can trigger your Martha to start your engine, and also Crow is just a very good hand trap this format. It's very good against Pearly, it's very good against Unchained, so that is why I am playing the DD Crow. And to round off our hand trap, so we're playing 9 in the main deck, which I feel it's a bit of a low number, but I think with Exosisters you can kind of get away with it because the deck has a lot of interruption built in. We have triple Imperm. Now, Imperm, I'm playing it because I was playing Vela, but I think Imperm is just better. Obviously, you can't really be playing things like Gamma and Nibiru because you need to be controlling no monsters are only Xyz for the Martha, and Nibiru is going to kind of conflict with that. So I think Imperm is great. It's a very good sick draw because you can just blanket negate something. So, and obviously it's very good applications in terms of it's very good against Pearly. You hurt Pearlily. It's decent against Unchained if you hit the Wave King Caesar as well. So Imperm's very nice, and I just like having it as, my 6th, as my 7th, 8th, and 9th hand trap. You can obviously change it if you want, but I think this hand trap ratio is very solid for the format. For the generic spells, Triple Pot of Prosperity. Let's see if I can move it here. I'm noticing there's a bit of glare. Triple Pot of Prosperity. People say, do you need to play this card? Obviously, you don't need to play this card. However, I feel this card takes the deck to the next level and the level beyond that about inconsistency. Remember, Martha and Aratama are your main starters, and just playing Triple Pot of Prosperity, you don't really care that much about your extra deck, to be honest. You can always banish 6, which is fantastic. So you really do need to be playing Pot of Prosperity. And now with the reprints, you know, of the rarity collection, Pot Prosperity is hopefully going to be a lot cheaper and a lot more affordable and accessible to people. For the other spells, we have double, triple tack, and the one call by. This is sort of my hand trap punishment set. If they hand trap me, I'm going to punish them, unless it's Impum. Obviously, Impum is the exception, which is why I play it as well. It's still a trap and not a monster, so it won't trigger Thrust, it won't trigger Talents, and it won't, you know, be able to be call byed. It would be able to be cross-out designated, but for now, people aren't really playing that, so that is why I think Impum is also very good. Forgot to mention that. But double, triple tack, and one call by. Would I play Thrust? Not in the main, because there isn't really that many powerful spells or traps that we can set unless we start main decking some non-engine. But I think Tactics is great for the hand rip, because Exosisters are going to be churning control. So if we can remove that board breaker, remove that Kaiju as well, because Kaijus are a big thing. They can hit your Magnifica, and that sort of switches off your whole thing. You control a non-Exosister monster, so your traps are sort of dead as well. So that is why I think Tactics is great. And of course, you can hit Ashes, you can hit Veilers on your Exosisters. And also, if you have Call By and an Exosister Martha, you can normal Martha, call by something, and then trigger the Martha. So it's like an extra DD Crow as well as serving as protection. And for the last two cards in the main, we have double Gozen Match. Now the entire deck is light, apart from Aratama, but that being said, we're going to Gozen Match. The way I play Gozen Match is I play it very safe. Obviously, you want to hit your opponent with that surprise factor. However, in games 2 and 3, when I'm going first, and I suspect they're going to be having Kaijus, I will flip Gozen in the standby, because that will lock me into light, meaning my opponent cannot give me a non-light Kaiju. Obviously, if you're playing Cyber Dragons and they play the light Kaiju, you know, you're going to want to take out Gozen Matches anyway, because Cyber Dragons are mostly lights. But for most decks, they're not going to be playing the light Kaiju, meaning your Magnifica is safe, meaning that you don't need to worry about it getting randomly removed by a Kaiju, it randomly getting removed by a raw Sphere Mode. Although you do play around it, you usually end with one summon, so Sphere Mode and Lava Golem are sort of not very great against you. But in case your opponent gives you a monster with Get and Ken or whatever, if there's thousands of ways of giving your opponent a monster, and then you can be punished with the Lava Golem. So I think the Gozen Match, if you're playing an Exosisters, obviously it's very good if you can flip it and make your opponent waste cards. However, game 2 and 3, if you think they have a Kaiju, flip it early, protect your Magnifica, establish the win condition. Don't be greedy, essentially. I think this deck is one of these things where if you play greedy, you get punished. If you normal summon Aratama, knowing you have other plays and you get ashed or impermed, your turn sort of ends there, unless you have the Sakitama hard drawn. So don't play greedy, play it safe, establish your win con, establish your banishers, and you know, most decks won't be able to sort of keep up with that because it's banishing, and most of them are non-targeting as well, so it gets around the cards that can't be targeted. So yeah, that is the main deck, 40 cards. Let's now move on to the extra deck. Moving on to the extra deck here, we'll of course have double of the Exosister Magnifica. Now Magnifica, I think, is unfortunately a bit expensive at the moment, because I think it wasn't reprinted in the Megatins, and people have sort of just bought it out. Or maybe it was reprinted in the I'm not sure if it was reprinted in the Megatins. However, I do know that it's a bit expensive. I think it's around £12 a copy right now. But I swear it's like the only Exosister card that's expensive. And, you know, every deck has a card that's expensive. So Exosister Magnifica is just, you know, the Exosister card of the moment. So hopefully it'll get reprinted again, and then the entire deck will be super, super budget. But for now, it's relatively budget, apart from the Magnificas that you have to pay around £12 each. But you only need 2. Would I recommend playing 1? No. 2 does definitely come up. 3 almost never comes up. So 2 is the perfect number. We have triple Exosister Michalis. Michalis is probably the best Xyz in the deck, apart from Magnifica, in terms of what you can hard make with 2 level 4s. The turn it's summoned, it's a quick effect banish, which is fantastic. It also does in the graveyard, which is great. Also, if you detach a material, it's a search for a spell. So that's how you get your trap searches or your spell searches. And also, all of the Exosister monster Xyz have the effect that they cannot be destroyed when the monster special summoned from the graveyard. So if you are playing in a deck that reborns a lot from the graveyard, you are protected by battle naturally. So really, really nice. We have double of the Exosister Caspitel. Caspitel is probably the second best one you're going to be hard making. Sometimes you want to make the Caspitel first to get the Martha search, to then use Martha and make your then make your Michalis to then make your Magnifica. If you don't know what it does, is you make it and it's a rota just for an Exosister monster. Also, the turn it's summoned, neither player can special summon monsters from the graveyard. So if you make it during your opponent's turn, it's going to have that sort of very good floodgate effect. So really nice. 1 Exosister Jabrine, 1 Exosister Asophiel. Why do I play 1-on-1? Because you never really make these guys that much. You obviously need them as the option there. Jabrine is fantastic. I see some people playing 2, which I could kind of get behind if you want to banish one with Prosperity. However, Jabrine allows you to make those OTKs. You're going to make Jabrine, and it is you can detach material, and all Xyz monsters you control will gain 800 attack. That is even after, Jabrine's used its effect, so you can then use Jabrine for Magnifica and it will gain the 800. And during the turn, it is summoned quick effect. It targets an effect monster and is an imperm, which is fantastic. It doesn't have any sort of floodgatey effects when it's summoned. However, Asophiel does. The turn it's summoned, it is essentially a Abyss Dweller. Neither player can activate card effects in the graveyard, so that's fantastic. Against Unchained, you make the Asophiel during their turn, what are they going to do? There's no card effects in their grave. Just really, really good. And this isn't on a quick effect, but you can detach 1 material from this card and target 1 monster opponent controls, compulse it back to the hand. So very, very nice to have them as options. Again, you don't really make them that much because you prioritize the Caspitel and Michaelis, but make them during your opponent's turn and you will see the benefits of them very, very quickly. So that is the Exosister part of the extra deck. Moving on to the generic stuff, we have 1 Zeus. Obviously, we'll be playing Zeus. Zeus can come up, especially in the times where you sort of disrupted your opponent and you've gotten to the stage where you can just attack with your Magnifica. Maybe it's not enough for game. You can slap on a Zeus and have that extra disruption. I play the Utopia and Utopia Lightning. People never expect this, and it has won me a few games where there's been a very big monster that's been sort of unable to be affected, and you can just make Utopia the Lightning and just be over it because it becomes 5k during the damage step, and your opponent cannot activate cards until the end of the damage step. So that is very good, and it sort of gives you Utopia a bit of protection. Keep in mind that you can't use him as Xyz material, so sadly you can't, make Zeus after, which is kind of annoying, and they definitely didn't think of that considering how old this card is as sort of balancing, but it's still very good. We play the 1 Abyss Dweller. Again, if Abyss Dweller just shuts down Tillements, you have your own in-theme Abyss Dweller. However, in a sticky situation, you can just hard make Abyss Dweller. For time reasons, we have the 1 Gaga Cowboy. We pay a lot of 800s. We also can gain 800 life points as well a few times. And we can also now deal 800 via extra deck. So I think that is worth it. And for the last card, we have the 1 Baguska. Baguska is the best card to make if for some reason you just don't have ways to get into 2 Xyz monsters, you don't have ways to get into your trap, you've sort of been hand trapped a lot, you just make Baguska, you sit on it, and sometimes that's enough. Do I want to play the new Zeus card? Yes. What would I take out? I'm not sure. Maybe I take out Abyss Dweller or Baguska or Cowboy, one of those two, and play the new Zeus. The new Zeus is absolutely fantastic. However, Exosisters do lock you into Exosisters fairly early on as soon as you use Martha effect, so I don't know if it's going to be as, generic as your other decks would be able to use it. But that is the extra deck. Let's now move on to the side. Moving on to the side deck, we have triple of Dimension Shifter. This is a deck that can definitely play Dimension Shifter. Why do I not play it in the main? I think it's a bit clunky in the main, that is my personal opinion. However, a lot of people enjoy it in the main, and if you do, simply just put it in, take out the Crows and play Shifter. I think Shifter is a fantastic card in the right matchups. Against Tillements, obviously, bring this card in, and it's basically going to make them cry. Against Dark Worlds, obviously, bring this card in. But apart from that, I feel like it's a hand trap which is a bit awkward, if you get what I'm saying. If you don't, just main deck it, there's no problem at all. We have triple Droll and Lockbird. Again, this against Manadium, bro, you side in Drolls, you droll them, GG's type of thing. Against certain combo decks, you droll them and it's GG's. So, you got to be very conscious of the meta. You got to be very aware of what the other meta decks lose to, and that's what your side deck is basically for. Shifter really, really hurts Tillements and hurts a few other decks. Droll really hurts Manadium and the other decks that Shifter doesn't really hit. Siding them both in is a bit contradictive since Droll has to go to the graveyard, so I very rarely side them in together unless it's maybe Dark Worlds where you just need to see Droll or Shifter and their turn essentially ends. So yeah, just be careful of that. Droll does conflict with Shifter a little bit, but as I said, they're just fantastic hand traps that do counter a lot of meta decks at the moment. For Spicy Tech, we have triple Gravekeeper's Inscription. I am a very firm believer that this card is very good. If you don't know what it does, during your main phase 1, you apply one of these effects until the end of your opponent's turn. Neither player can activate card effects in the graveyard. Neither player can banish cards from the graveyard. Neither player can special summon monsters from the graveyard. You pick one of them, and it's basically a 2-turn lingering effect. Really, really nice card. Exosisters can definitely use it because we don't really use the graveyard for anything. So why not play more graveyard hate that you're going to be siding into specific matchups? Speaking of Triple Tactics Thrust, I definitely do want to side the Thrust because alongside Thrust, we're going to be able to grab our powerful spells. Annoying that Inscription is during the main phase 1, and it's like your first action during the main phase 1. However, Thrust is able to grab very powerful spells that we do play, like the Lightning Storm, which is nice. We also play the Harpy's Feather Duster and the 1 Herald of the Abyss. Now, Herald of the Abyss, I think, is mandatory to play against because you can struggle against Pearly, and you don't want to have all your Exosisters put to the bottom of your deck because then you're just going to run out of names. So you do need to Herald of the Abyss them, you know, in those situations. It also deals with random towers that your opponents may have. Lightning Storm is obviously just very good against back row, and so is the Feather Duster.
It's time! Let's go!